What was the most memorable workplace meltdown you ever witnessed? I work in a building with a cafeteria in it. We noticed that one of the everyday cashiers had stopped showing up to work and found out that she had passed away. My coworker asked who we were talking about, and upon finding out, stood up from her desk, flung herself to the ground, and proceeded to roll back and forth crying as loud as she could. We all freaked out. We had customers on the phone we had to put on hold until we could get her to her feet, and someone could escort her somewhere else so she could calm down. She took the next few days off, including the day of the funeral. Assuming she had gone to the funeral, we asked her how it was. She answered with, "Huh? I didn't go, I barely knew her."
That's an intense situation. It's kind of wild how people react to news like that. You think someone would be more connected if they were so upset, but it seems she just had a moment. People handle grief differently. It's tough when emotions spill over, especially at work. You gotta keep things moving, but sometimes you just can't. It's a strange balance trying to be there for someone while also managing your own stuff.
Worked in a video store when there was such a thing. My coworker showed up very, very high. He was also about 6 feet 3 inches and 140 pounds, so he stood out in a crowd to begin with. Anyway, he came in for a 4-hour shift, stood in the middle of our bank of checkout registers, and just ate chips, like 6 bags of chips back to back. And he ate them slow and savored the shit out of each bite. The whole time he had zero facial expression. Think of the dull stare of a chewing dairy cow. After about 3 hours, he calmly turns to me and says, "I can't do this anymore," gently sets down his bag of chips and walks out the door. We never saw him in the store again.
That sounds like a classic moment. I can imagine just standing there watching him, just eating chips like it's the most serious job ever. The whole vibe must have been surreal. It's wild how some people handle work like it's no big deal, while others can't take it. That guy truly took chip enjoyment to a new level before deciding he was done for the day. I wonder whatever happened to him.
I've posted this before, but still makes me laugh. I wasn't the one that got fired, but I watched it happen. I was at Publix getting a sub when I hear this. "Manager, what the hell are you doing? You know I have to fire you for doing this again." "Worker, what is the problem? I didn't do anything wrong." "Manager, you are allowed to get something to eat on your break, not eat while you're packing food." "Worker, so I had a couple chicken wings, it's not that big of a deal." "Manager, there are 50 wings in the bottom of that trash can." Nothing else was said, and the manager escorted the wing eater out. The guy was making baskets of wings and was basically going one for the basket, one for me, and eating his way through the batch of wings. Best part was the two people making subs just start laughing, and one goes, "If the manager knew how much that guy has eaten in the 2 weeks he has worked here, he would shit a brick." The other day, he just sat there eating a whole container of potato salad while he was working the fryer.
That's a funny situation. I mean, who doesn't sneak a bite here and there? But 50 wings is pretty wild. It's like he was on a mission to get through that trash can. I can just picture the workers watching him, chuckling as he eats like it's a buffet. It's those moments that make you wonder about workplace food ethics. Makes you think twice before stepping into a kitchen, doesn't it?
I worked in a shop as a cashier for a while, and during a really busy rush period, there's only me and this other woman on tills anyway. We're working away, and suddenly there's a police officer and my manager watching, and they point at the woman working with me. Then they promptly walk over and take her away. She didn't go easy, though. She was doing the whole sovereign citizen thing, shouting about rights she thought she had, like a lawyer being present at the arrest or whatever, then started crying about needing to get her son or whatever. I distinctly remember this because I was annoyed they didn't put anyone else on to help me, and a customer made a snarky comment about queue times. Like my colleague just legit got arrested for theft. "What do you want me to do, Linda? Go put your 8-pound candle through the fucking self-service. Christ."
That sounds pretty chaotic. Must have been weird to see your colleague get taken away like that. I get your frustration. people can be pretty unaware of what's happening around them. Dealing with that rush and a customer complaining while something serious is happening is tough. It's a strange way to have your day disrupted, for sure. Just trying to do your job and then all that drama unfolds.
I got into a screaming match with my boss. He was furious, and after the altercation, I saw him head to the elevator. I knew he was going to human resources, so I ran down the stairs and beat him to the HR office by about 20 seconds. He had to sit in the HR waiting room for half an hour until I was done speaking to them, which made him even more furious. Edit, wow. Thanks for the gold.
Sounds like a tense situation. I've had a run-in with a boss myself once. Didn't scream, but the vibe was definitely off. I remember getting called into their office and feeling that wave of anxiety. Funny how that moment can change everything, right? Watching them fume while waiting is just the icing on the cake. Gotta admit, I felt a sense of relief after.
I didn't actually witness this, I did it. I was working at a Wendy's my senior year of high school, with that being my second job. The first was a McDonald's across the street. McDonald's taught me drive-through, and Wendy's got January 10th TH the business, so I was a drive-through god there. One night, there was a football game we didn't know about, and when it let out we got absolutely slammed. I was working 3 positions in drive-through, which I could handle, but when I had to do fries I couldn't deal with it. I asked the guy who was working front counter, who hadn't had a customer in about an hour, to hop on fries and help me out. He mumbled something and walked over there. I relax and go back to drive-through, and when I go to bag my order, I see all this kid did was drop a basket of fries, not make any of the 20+ orders we had. At first I was like, fuck him, I got this, and made a large fry. I then turned and threw it at him, calling him a lazy, incompetent asshole. You can't even work a fast food job. Walked back to the office and tossed my headset at the manager and told him I quit.
I remember working at a burger joint too. One night, we got hit hard during a local event. I was juggling multiple roles and lost my cool when someone didn't help out. I snapped at a coworker and threw some fries, which didn't help at all. Ended up quitting on the spot, just like that. Looking back, it was impulsive, but I guess we all have those moments when the stress piles up.
Suit guy. We work in a business casual office. Most of us just wore button-up shirts, decent pants, and dress shoes every day. However, Suit guy showed up as a new hire and wore the same exact tan suit every day for the 3 months he was there, which is what earned him the nickname. He also drank a large coffee, a Monster Energy drink, and a can of Mountain Dew in that order between when he walked in at 8 and when he had lunch at noon. Apparently, he was going through a divorce that was getting pretty contentious, and the combination of caffeine and rage put him over his boiling point one morning when he began screaming at his phone while at his desk and then broke his cell phone in half. This was 2012, so it was a full-screen smartphone that he somehow bent until it broke. I don't know how he did it, my friends, and I tried to replicate it using one of my old phones a couple days later, and we could cause some bending, but no break. He came the next day with a new phone and acted like he hadn't made a scene the day before.
Suit guy really stood out in the office. Wearing that same tan suit every day was a choice. He was always chugging down caffeine, probably trying to keep up with all the stress from his divorce. I still remember the day he lost it, screaming at his phone and somehow broke it in half. We couldn't believe it. Then, he just showed up the next day like nothing happened. Classic.
There was an Arab man named Ahmed that delivered food to the factory I worked at a few years ago. He was the nicest guy I ever met. Always gave me free food just for being respectful to him. One day, he was delivering food to employees who had to work on Sunday, and they were all whining and complaining about how unfair it is, even though they were being paid double time. Apparently, Ahmed had heard enough because in front of the whole plant, he began to scream at all of them for being ungrateful crybabies and reminded them how good they have it in America. I had never seen the factory so quiet. I asked him what was up as he left, and he explained to me how he had come here from the Middle East to escape famine and terrorism, and he started with nothing and worked all day, every day, to get where he is now. It was one of the most motivating things I've ever witnessed.
That's a memorable moment. Ahmed really stood up for himself and others. It's interesting seeing someone who has faced real struggles call out people who take things for granted. His perspective, given where he came from, put a lot into context. Sometimes we forget how good we really have it. It's a good reminder to appreciate the opportunities we get. Moments like that can shift the whole atmosphere.
While I was at college learning metalworking, our teacher got so pissed off with the complete lack of respect/attention by his students that he stormed out of the engineering lab and got his car, then drove off, only to hit a lamppost at nearly 30 miles per hour. He got out his car, pushed it off the lamppost, which fell over and nearly took him out. He drove off with steam coming out of the bonnet of his new Porsche. Meanwhile, he had left an aluminum crucible on full heat, which literally went into meltdown. Molten metal started bubbling and bursting out of the crucible like a volcano. Where the molten metal touched anything flammable, it started a fire. When molten metal starts erupting, you know you're having a bad day. He was remarkably not fired, and all of his students made rapid life adjustments and never disrespected him again.
That sounds like a wild day in class. The teacher losing it and then crashing his car, that's definitely memorable. But the molten metal situation was next level. Must have been chaotic in the lab. I can imagine everyone panicking while trying to put out fires. It's crazy how one moment can change the entire atmosphere of a class. After that, I bet everyone kept their heads down and paid attention for sure.
When I was a teenager, I worked at a job where the general manager's husband was sleeping with the assistant manager. The assistant manager flaunted it too. She would go around saying things like, "He told me I give better head than you do," and "No wonder your husband cheats. I would cheat if I were married to you." Anyway, one day, the general manager finally snaps, and they get into a full-on cat fight right in front of the entire store. We had to call the police to break them up. It is pretty bad when the teenage crew can act more civilized than the adult managers.
That sounds like a wild workplace. It's strange how drama can unfold in such unexpected ways. I guess it goes to show that adult conflicts can be just as messy as anything you'd see in high school. Everyone probably had their own side to take, even though they were just trying to do their jobs. It's kind of amusing how the teenagers handled it better than the adults. Makes you wonder about maturity, huh?
Flight check-in in Turkey on our way home from a cruise. We stand in a very crowded line as a lot of cruise passengers arrive by bus at the airport. Suddenly, some guy starts arguing loudly with the employee at the check-in. Next thing, the employee jumps up and down, kicks his chair, and smashes one of these dangerous items not to include in your baggage signs on the counter, while fanatically screaming curses in Turkish at the top of his lungs. For co-works had to actually drag him out. I still can't begin to understand what might upset some guy at a check-in so much.
Sounds like a wild scene at the airport. I've seen people lose it in crowded places too. It's surprising how small things can trigger intense reactions. I once saw a guy freak out over a delay. He just couldn't handle it. It's like some forget we're all just trying to get home. In moments like that, you just hope it doesn't ruin your travel vibe. Airports can be chaotic.
One morning, my manager called me and asked me to switch shifts with him, meaning I would open and he would close. Cool, no big deal. I go in early, open the store, and receive a phone call in the middle of a consultation with a customer. It's my manager, and he tells me that he just resigned. That was it. He came by about 3 months after his resignation and was looking pretty frail and skinny. He told me it was from eating healthy, but I wasn't sure. About 8 months later, after I moved to a different store, he held up my old store at knife point and stole the money from the safe. He got caught a few months later during a traffic stop. It all came about because his ex-wife refused to let him see his daughter, and he just went off the absolute deep end. It was a slow breakdown, but nothing that we ever expected from him.
That's a wild turn of events. One day, just swapping shifts, and the next your manager is in a completely different place. It's unsettling how a person's life can shift so dramatically because of personal challenges. You think you know someone, then they surprise you in the worst way. It's a reminder that you really don't see what's going on under the surface. Makes you think about mental health and how important it is to check in on people.
Working in fast food as a manager, our GM comes in for the day with this sullen look on his face. This was around 10 or so. Around 11, our district manager comes in with this new person none of the other employees have seen before. GM and DM talk in the back of the store for a while. GM walks out, bawling his eyes out. Now, this is a pretty stocky 35-year-old, totally not one you'd normally see crying. As all the workplace gossip is taking hold, a customer comes into the store and says our dumpster is on fire. Sure enough, I walk outside and there's a decent-sized fire going where we throw our trash and our grease. Turns out the GM got canned for being irresponsible and incompetent, and didn't do much good for himself by also causing a literal dumpster fire on his already metaphorical dumpster fire of a day. The new GM was actually pretty rad, lol.
That day was pretty chaotic. The GM showed up looking rough, then got fired in front of everyone. It's not something you see often, especially from someone tough like him. Right after, the dumpster fire added to the madness. It was like everything that could go wrong did. But then the new GM came in, and honestly, he turned out to be decent. Sometimes a fresh start can change things around.
At the height of the dot-com era, a programmer who had been bullshitting his skill level flounced hard. It was launch day, everything was ready except one part, his shit. He was furiously bug hunting, but ultimately was unable to get to work. Around noon, he just stood up, announced "fuck this BOTCH, I'm out." And we never saw him again. Junior level programmer fixed his crap that afternoon, launched on time.
It's funny how things play out. This programmer had talked a big game, but when it came down to it, he couldn't deliver. Just walked out without a care. Junior stepped in, fixed everything, and got it done. Sometimes, the pressure reveals who can really handle it. It's a reminder that confidence doesn't always equal competence.
A friend of mine who worked for Ricoh, printers, and other stuff witnessed one of the strangest declarations of loyalty to a company that I have ever heard of. In case you don't know, Ricoh's logo is simply the word Ricoh in big red letters. One of the managers insinuated that one of the employees in the meeting wasn't as dedicated to the company as he thought he was. The guy he called out stood up and yelled, "My blood bleeds Ricoh red." The fuck does that even mean?
That's a wild story. It sounds like that employee took company loyalty to a whole new level. I get people being passionate about their jobs, but claiming your blood bleeds company colors is a bit much. Kind of funny when you think about how seriously some people take work. I mean, it's just a job, right? But I guess some folks really identify with their brand. That's commitment, I'll give him that.
My first job was a summer job at Kroger, basically bagging groceries and wrangling carts in the Atlanta heat. There was another kid who worked with me who was over this job before he started. One day our manager says, "Disgruntled young employee, I'm not going to fire you because I know that's what you want." Dude stared at him for a little, walked over and grabbed a rotisserie chicken, came back and ate it in front of the manager and customers. It's my favorite story because 10 years later I ran into the kid, and he's doing quite well for himself. He said that store experience made him realize that he needs to work hard, so he never has to work at a place like that again.
That's a pretty interesting job story. It shows how some experiences stick with you. The way the kid handled his frustration was something else. Eating that rotisserie chicken like a boss in front of everyone must have been a real statement. It's cool he turned that moment into motivation for his future. Sounds like he learned a lot from that summer job, even if it wasn't the best situation at the time.
In first meeting with client for major project. Started this meeting on my own, never met any of these people before. CFO and Director of HR were both there among other executives and workers. Meeting starts, and within 5 minutes, HR dude says something innocuous that pisses the CFO right the fuck off. He says one line of argument, and then when HR guy replies, CFO gets up and storms out, slamming the door. Everyone was sitting in stunned silence. My first thought was, that was way too theatrical. They're playing a prank on the new vendor. I was fully expecting CFO to walk back and smirking, room laughs, and we get on with business. Nope. 30 seconds later, one of CFO's underlings, still sitting in the meeting, gets a text from CFO demanding she leave as well. Apparently, that conflict had been simmering for years between those two. That was an interesting project.
That sounds like quite the first meeting. It's not every day you see that level of drama. I had a similar experience once. We were pitching to a client, and right as I started, one of their team members openly disagreed with the project. It threw me off for a second. I was waiting for a revival, hoping it was a joke, but no. Just made the whole thing way more awkward. Always memorable, though.
I used to work in Nando's and was at front of house when I heard yelling at the back. One of the back of house was having a massive go at our manager, swearing at him as she walked out of front of house while she was yelling and swearing. I was serving a customer, and the till opened, and she slammed it shut before I got a chance to give the customer their change. Everyone in the place was just staring at her, and I had to wait ages to get this guy's change, because only managers could open tills, and he was trying to sort this crazy lady.
That sounds like a wild shift at Nando's. It's always strange when the kitchen drama spills out front. People awkwardly watching while you deal with the chaos must have been uncomfortable. I'm guessing you were just trying to keep things running smoothly. It's tough when stuff like that happens during a rush. Got to keep your cool even when everything feels out of control.
Not crazy, but sad. I was a sales manager at a telemarketing firm and was in charge of about 50 agents, most 16 to 20 years old. I try to be very close to my agents because I genuinely cared about them. One night, a 19-year-old game named Anna, that I absolutely loved, started crying while at her cubicle, and I pulled her into my office and asked her what the matter was. She proceeded to tell me about how her stepmother had murdered her dad about 6 months ago. She then looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm so tired of being depressed." Somehow this random girl had put a feeling I had for a long time into words, and I damn near started to cry. I did the only thing I could think of and looked at her and said, "One day everything will be better for you," and hugged her till she stopped crying. And I don't know where you are right now, but I hope you're happy.
It's tough hearing stories like that. Being in a position where you want to help someone who's going through so much can be overwhelming. I remember a similar moment when a friend shared their struggles. It hits hard when you realize some people are carrying burdens we can't even imagine. Sometimes, all you can do is be there for them, offering a bit of comfort and hope. It's the little things that count.
One of the sergeants in my platoon had squirreled away a bottle of hot sauce he always took on field ops. Young Lance Corporal was cleaning gear, found the sauce, and threw it out, right before our LT surprised us with pizza, because we were working extremely late. Sergeant found out what the Lance had done, picked him up by his collar, shook him like a rag doll, threw him down, and stole his pizza.
That sounds like a classic moment in the field. It's funny how something as small as hot sauce can lead to chaos. The young Lance Corporal probably didn't think tossing it would have such big consequences. And getting your pizza stolen right after that must have felt like a double whammy. Just shows how serious some people take their favorite things, even in stressful situations.
Not really a meltdown, but a pretty good put down. I used to work in a place where when a certain milestone was met, a short burst of music would play. There were about 5 different bursts for different occurrences, and as the IT guys, it was our job to put these together, something set years ago, which never needed changing. One day a head comes in during a particularly busy period and asks my boss to change one of the tunes. The absurdity of this request hit my boss, and he turned to him and shouted in a room of maybe 30 people, "I'm not a fucking DJ." Needless to say, we all fell about the place laughing once the head slumped out of the door. What a guy, smiley face.
That's a classic moment. I can totally picture the whole scene. It's wild how a simple request can spark that kind of reaction. Your boss had a clear boundary there, and it just shows how people can get a bit ridiculous with their demands. The laughter afterward must have really lightened the mood. Sometimes, it's these unexpected moments that bring everyone closer together. Solid story.
I didn't witness it personally, but the guy who held the role I have before me is a legend around here. Apparently 3 weeks into the job, he quietly got up from his desk in the middle of the afternoon, went to the manager's office, and said, "I can't do this anymore." He then proceeded to walk around the office, shaking everyone's hands and saying goodbye. Most people had no idea who he was.
That's a wild move. It's strange how some people can just decide to leave without making a fuss. I guess he had a different vibe about him. It must have shocked the office when he said goodbye. I wonder if he had something better lined up or just wanted out. Either way, that kind of sudden decision sticks in people's minds. It's a little inspiring in a way.
Was working as a bagger at Harmon's in West Valley. They decided it's time for me to branch out, so I end up in the dairy coolers. My supervisor back there is chill as fuck. I was welcome to any dairy products that were 3 days or less from expiration. We'd literally just hang out, drink milk, eat cheese, restock product as needed. One afternoon, I got there before him, which never happened. He walks in like fucking Gandalf, cool as ever. Nightmare_King, are you comfortable running this on your own? Because shit's about to go down, and I need you to handle it. Cool. I nodded nervously. Not 2 minutes later, 5 police officers rush in, our floor manager on their heels. Jeff, we'll call him Jeff, puts up no resistance, lets them cuff him and escort him from the premises and into a squad car. Jeff's usual master of my own fate smile still in place. It was the last I saw of him. We had our theories, but none of us knew what he had done.
That's a wild story. Here you are, just hanging out in the dairy coolers, then bam, police are in the mix. It's weird how fast things can change. One moment, you're chilling with your supervisor who seems solid, and the next, he's getting cuffed. It makes you realize you don't really know what people are dealing with behind the scenes. Definitely an unforgettable day. Makes you think about what really goes on in those quiet places.
Local small town donut shop. Had a good friend who worked there. It was a popular workplace for high school kids. Important to note is that this particular donut shop would sell their day-old donuts at a discount. They always had a table of them by the front door. We were hanging out one day when the cashier's girlfriend comes in, and they get into some type of altercation, which escalated into girlfriend storming out. But not before grabbing the tablecloth on the day-old donuts table and flipping it with enough force that the entire table's worth, about 8 dozen day-old donuts, neatly stacked, went flying into the air and all over the shop. 20-plus years later, and I can still remember exactly what that rain of donuts looked like. Everyone in the shop was silent, mouths agape, and the cashier just took off his apron and walked out.
That donut shop was something else. A friend worked there during high school, and it was always busy. One day, his girlfriend came in, and things got tense. She flipped the table with the day-old donuts, sending dozens flying everywhere. The whole shop went quiet, just stunned by the chaos. My friend didn't even stick around. He just walked out. It's one of those moments that sticks with you.
I worked with this lady who had some mental issues. Obviously, one day we're all working away in our cubicles when we start hearing some screaming. She was in the hallway on her hands and knees crying because her ponytail was so tight it was giving her a headache. We could not convince her to undo the ponytail. She kept crying and had to go home because she was sure she was going to die.
That sounds like a tough situation. It's interesting how something small, like a ponytail, can spiral into a bigger issue. Sometimes people get so caught up in their emotions that they can't see a simple solution. It must have been difficult for everyone involved to watch that unfold. You just never know how someone is feeling inside, even in a typical work environment.
Once my entire freshman world history class, except for 3 of us, failed a quiz on Syrian current events. He wasn't too mad to begin with, but when he started to go over the answers and students weren't listening, he freaked out. He started being really passive-aggressive by asking students who didn't know anything for answers and reacting like a human Willy Wonka me. Then he finally asked this one girl a question. She answered it wrong and said, "Oh, it's fine, it's not like your family was killed by a bomb." He then proceeded to flip the desk at the front of the room and threw a cup of steaming hot coffee at her. A week later, the superintendent started sitting in on our classes and didn't leave for 2 months. Needless to say, he started acting much more tame after that.
That sounds intense. I mean, a teacher losing it like that is something else. It's wild how one moment can change everything. The coffee throw must have caught everyone off guard. And the superintendent hanging around for 2 months? That probably made the whole vibe in class pretty awkward. It's strange how just one incident can shift the entire atmosphere. Can't imagine what that girl felt like after saying that.
Security guard at an amusement park gets curious when he hears an argument between a guest and the kid working the stroller rental booth. They won't give her the $1 deposit back because she doesn't have the receipt. Guard is this young surfer dude. After assessing the situation, he looks at the guest and says, "So, you have a stroller that you gave $1 for, and they won't take it back, right?" "Guest, that's right." Security guard. "So take the motherfucker home with you." He got fired about 30 minutes later.
Sounds like that guard just had enough of the nonsense. Sometimes you get stuck in a job where you want to help people but end up getting dragged into petty arguments. His solution was simple, but obviously, the park couldn't have him saying stuff like that. Anyway, I guess he thought he was just being real, but it cost him. Crazy how things can turn on a dime like that.
2 of my framing buddies got in a fight one time over a nail gun accident. Both guys are built like a brick shit house, and neither of them are a stranger to fist fights. I didn't see the fight, but they ended up smashing each other through walls, window frames, doors, etc. They both just stopped after about 5 minutes. Not because somebody won the fight, but because they set the crew back by 3 days from all the damage. It took them well into the weekend to catch back up. Strangely enough, they still got a beer together that same night.
That's a classic story. 2 tough guys having it out but realizing they messed up. It sounds like they went all out, but in the end, they just had to deal with the consequences together. Pretty wild how they could fight like that and still share a beer later. It shows how friendships can handle some rough times, even when things get out of hand. Just another day on the job, I guess.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love,